start with what is NLP. Well, from the very beginning, Bandler and Grinder said, well, it's the study of the structure of subjective experience. And I think that's a very important comment, because it's about the structure of the experience. It's not about the study of the experience. Right? It's not about the content of the experience. It's about the structure of it. Nervous system, language, which is verbal and nonverbal communication, and then programs. What are structures? What are actual tools, exercises? Because people have studied things. Bandler and Grinder didn't discover representational systems. People knew the five senses forever. They didn't discover submodalities or metaphors or these other things. They've been around forever. What they did was they linked them to certain patterns, of communication and of the nervous system, and then they put them into these practical, structures, these practical tools, and that's why NLP is, expanded all over the world. It's because it's not just some set of belief systems or some philosophy. It actually grounds these things into some usable product. So then, if we talk about the idea of generations, well, what do we mean by new generation? So like a second generation, a third generation. Well, if you think about, your iPhone or your iPad, if you have an iPhone 7, right, it's a different generation than an iPhone 1. But even there's a big question, well, what makes the difference between iPhone 6 and iPhone 7? Because you make updates in iPhone 6s, you can have also different versions of iPhone 6s, but it's still an iPhone 6. It's not enough to be an iPhone 7. I think that becomes that interesting question. Well, why would we call something a different generation? And essentially, the kind of notion here is that this third generation, we look at three minds. Now, the focus of the first generation of NLP is essentially cognitive mind, the conscious cognitive mind. And I think many people would consider early NLP, as essentially a cognitive psychology, right? It's a cognitive psychology. People would say it's a form of cognitive therapy. Although I go, well, I don't see it's a lot more than a therapy. I hardly ever use it as a therapy. I'm using it for many, many more things. It's a coaching process. It's a leadership development process. It's an educational process. It's a health process. It's not just only for psychotherapy. But if you look at, I was the primary author of NLP Volume 1. I wrote it. And when you look at that book, it's about nothing other than the cognitive mind. It's how you think, what's the structure of what you think, these representational systems, these strategies. Doesn't even quite get into submodalities yet, but it's all about the cognitive mind, what happens in here. As you kind of relook at a lot of these other things, you realize, hey, there's a lot more that's going on than just up here. Right? There's actually what we call a somatic mind. That the nervous system doesn't stop there. There's actually a whole lot of interesting stuff in the nervous system all the way through, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. But it doesn't stop there. The processing doesn't stop there.